beneath a sky darkened not by storm but by something older, something that feels carved from the memory of the earth itself, a faint blue shimmer has begun to rise. At first it appeared like nothing more than a soft bruise on the horizon, a thin breath of color bleeding into the night. But those who happened to look upward felt the same strange tightening in their chest and instinctive, knowing that the sky was not merely glowing, it was remembering. The Hopi elders once warned that when an age approaches its breaking point, the first tremor comes from above. Not as thunder, not as lightning, but as a shifting in the heavens, a signal subtle enough to be missed, yet powerful enough to alter the rhythm of the world beneath it. And now, one by one, those signals have begun to appear. The sun blazes with an intensity that feels almost angry, hurling magnetic storms into space like ancient arrows made of light. These storms ripple across the atmosphere, brushing the earth with violet scars that stretch across the polar skies. Meanwhile, the ground murmurs with quiet tremors, as if some ancient giant deep below is adjusting its weight after centuries of slumber. And in the midst of these scattered disturbances, a single phenomenon stands apart, a soft, electric blue light drifting at the edge of the cosmos. It does not behave like a star. It does not drift like a satellite. Its glow is too deliberate, its stillness too alive. It radiates a pale cobalt tone, cold, yet strangely pure, as though it is not emitting light but unveiling something. To those who see it, the sensation is both unsettling and intimate, as if the sky has opened its eyes and is staring directly back at them. The Hopi called this presence Blue Star Kachina, the ninth and final sign, the messenger that would appear just before the Great Purification. Not a destroyer, not a savior, but a mirror, a reminder. According to the Hopi, the world itself is not merely a place where life unfolds. It is a witness, a teacher, and a keeper of memory. Whenever humanity strays too far from balance, too far from humility, the earth begins to whisper first. And if the whispers are ignored, the sky begins to speak. That is why the appearance of the blue light unsettles people in ways modern explanations cannot soothe. Yes, scientists say it may be ionized gases from the tail of a distant comet. Yes, some attribute it to the heightened activity of solar cycle 25. Yet even those theological grounded fail to silence the sense that something ancient is stirring behind the veil of observable phenomena, because the feeling does not come from the eyes, it comes from the bones. In the desert lands of Arizona, where the Hopi have watched the movements of the sky for centuries, people have begun to notice a difference in the nights. The wind changes direction more often, not chaotically, but with purpose, as if drawn toward the source of the blue glow. The temperature fluctuates in patterns that defy the familiar rhythm of the seasons. Animals migrate erratically, following invisible paths only they seem able to perceive. And when locals look up, they describe the same eerie sensation. The blue light isn't just present, it is approaching. It pulses faintly, not like a heartbeat, but like a signal, soft, rhythmic, almost intentional. Some claim to feel a vibration deep within their ribs whenever it flickers. Others report hearing a hum in the air, a low resonance that fades the moment one tries to listen too closely. And a few whisper, in half-believing fear, that the light stirs something buried in their memory, as if an echo of a forgotten life is trying to surface. Are these merely coincidences? Imagination? The human mind searching for meaning in randomness? If that were true, one would expect the reactions to be isolated, but the same impressions are emerging from places, oceans, apart from the mountains of Chile, from the tundra of northern Canada, from islands in the Pacific, where skywatchers rarely agree on anything except what they have recently begun to sense. Something is returning. The Hopi foresaw this sentiment. In their stories, the blue star does not simply announce the end of a cycle, it awakens the memories the earth has kept hidden. It is the light that dissolves illusion, stripping away the false comfort of routine to reveal the state of humanity with unfiltered clarity. And when people confront that clarity, they feel the weight of all the ages that came before, the worlds that rose, flourished, collapsed, and were reborn. This is why the Hopi warned not to fear the star itself. The sky, they said, is only the messenger. The true changes begin in the elements, in the ground beneath one's feet, and in the chambers of the human heart. Over the weeks that follow, as the blue light grows more distinct, the world begins to notice accompanying signs, subtle but undeniable. Birds migrate along unfamiliar routes. Fish turn toward shore in great numbers. Lightning splits across the sky without a single clap of thunder. Strange metallic tones roll across open plains, recorded by those who cannot explain their origin. Some call it the sky hum, yet among the elders, it has a different name, the sigh of the old cycle. Individually, these events feel trivial. Together, they form a pattern, a soft drumbeat leading directly toward the ancient Hopi map of the Four Worlds. The cosmic story that explains not only the rise and fall of civilizations, but the rhythm of existence itself. And as the blue light continues to glow like a forgotten lantern hanging at the edge of time, the path into that story begins to unfold, guiding us toward the deeper mystery waiting in the chapters that follow. They say that before understanding the ninth sign, one must first understand the four worlds, the great spiral of creation and collapse that shapes all Hopi prophecy. According to the elders, time does not move forward like an arrow. It circles, folds, repeats. It is a wheel, and each world is a spoke on that wheel. When one spoke weakens, the wheel turns, and a new world emerges from the ashes of the last. As the blue light lingers in the sky, the old stories begin to feel less like myth and more like memory resurfacing through the cracks of the present. And so, one must look backward to understand what might be ahead. The elders taught that the first world ended when humanity abandoned the Creator not through a sudden act, but through slow erosion. The way a river carves a canyon grain by grain, people drifted into arrogance, forgetting the sacredness of all life. In the stories, this world dissolved not in fire or water, but through a quiet unweaving, as though creation itself withdrew its breath from a people who no longer cared to listen. The second world fell in violence. Humanity, gifted with the power to choose harmony, chose dominance instead. Tribes turned against tribes, brothers against brothers, and the world, unable to sustain the weight of that fracture, collapsed under its own discord. Some storytellers say it ended in ice. Others say in soundless tremors that swallowed entire nations. All agree on one thing: humanity tore itself apart before the earth ever lifted a hand. The third world was undone by desecration, rivers poisoned, soil exhausted. The delicate web binding all living things was severed, one thread at a time. And when the web broke, the world did as well, engulfed in great waves that washed across continents until only the seeds of life remained. This, the elders insisted, is the wound humanity carries into the fourth world, the memory of a flood that erased an age. And now we walk within the fourth world, the one we call the modern era, brilliant, powerful, magnificent, and deeply wounded. A world capable of miracles yet swollen with forgetfulness. A world where technology soars while the spirit sinks. A world standing not on solid ground, but on the thin edge between imbalance and renewal. The Hopi never described it as doomed, only fragile. Fragility, after all, is not a sentence. It is a warning. What makes the Hopi telling so haunting is how closely it mirrors stories echoed in places that should have had no way of knowing one another. Thousands of miles from the deserts of Arizona, the Maya described age's sun's age, rising and collapsing in cycles of fire, wind, darkness, and flood. Their calendar, meticulously carved in stone, also speaks of endings, not as apocalypses, but as cosmic renovations. Across the ocean, in the Vedic texts of India, the yugas unfold in long arcs of spiritual rise and decline. Humanity ascends into harmony, then slowly descends into confusion and attachment, until a reset and inner collapse, mirrored by the outer world, ushers in a new spiritual dawn. Even in ancient Persia, the Avesta speaks of repeating cycles in which the world falls into corruption, is cleansed, and is born again, brighter each time. How could people separated by oceans, by languages, by millennia, craft stories that rhyme so perfectly? Chance? Possibly. But to those who listen a little deeper, another answer whispers just beneath the surface. Memory. Not personal memory, not cultural memory, but the memory of the human species itself. A memory carried in myth, like seeds carried through a long winter. Perhaps the Hopi were not recounting isolated visions. Perhaps they were remembering what many peoples remembered, each in their own way. The rhythm of worlds turning, breaking, and renewing. A rhythm older than writing, older than nations, older than the concept of history itself. The elders often said, "We do not tell you what happens next. We tell you what always happens." And what always happens, they insisted, follows a pattern. When harmony fades, imbalance grows. When imbalance grows, the world reflects it. Not out of anger, but out of necessity. That is why the Hopi never framed prophecy as inevitability, they framed it as consequence. If humanity forgets, the earth remembers. If people fall out of alignment, the world shifts to realign them. The four worlds are not stories about destruction, they are stories about recalibration. This is the essence many modern listeners miss. The prophecy of the four worlds is not trying to frighten, it is trying to remind. Yet reminders rarely come gently, not when entire civilizations forget who they are. Which brings us back to the fourth world, the one whose surface trembles beneath our feet and whose sky flickers with an unfamiliar blue. The Hopi said this world would be shaped by both great wonder and deep wounding. We would build marvels that touch the clouds yet lose the ability to listen to the earth beneath our steps. We would connect entire nations with invisible threads of light yet grow lonelier inside. We would cure diseases once fatal but spread new sicknesses of spirit that no medicine can treat. This, they said, is what fragility looks like. Not weakness, but imbalance so subtle that most people never notice the ground shifting beneath them until it is too late. And then, they said, the signs return. The sky, the earth, the waters, the human heart. The human heart. All begin to tremble in quiet synchrony, like a forgotten drumbeat rising from the depths of the world. This is the moment where the four worlds shift from legend to lens, from folklore to prophecy. Because if the same cycle repeats, if patterns truly echo through ages, then the tension growing in the fourth world is not random. It is a signal that a fifth era may be preparing to stir beneath the surface. The Hopi never described the fifth world in grand visions. They spoke of it softly, almost shyly, as if it were a memory too sacred to speak plainly. It would not arrive with thunder or war. It would arrive like dawn, slow, gradual, impossible to pinpoint. A world of restored balance, where humans remember that they walk on sacred ground, and the earth remembers how to breathe with them. But every dawn must have its darkest point, and every world, before it rises, must witness its own unraveling. It is at this threshold between unraveling and renewal that the blue star appears. Not to decide humanity's fate, but to illuminate it, to show the fourth world exactly what it has become, so that the fifth world may begin with truth rather than illusion. This is why the four worlds matter now, in the glow of the cobalt light, because what has happened before, in cycles forgotten by history, seems to be happening again, and the sky, trembling softly above us, feels like the first chapter turning once more. If the four worlds form the backbone of Hopi prophecy, then the Blue Star Kachina is its pulse, the moment when myth steps out of the shadows and brushes against the surface of the physical world. The elders never spoke of the blue star as a metaphor. They spoke of it as something that would appear unmistakable, visible to all who dared to look up, a sign that the fourth world had reached its threshold. But what they described was not just a celestial body, it was a presence, a purifier, a revealer. And now, in the cold expanse of space, a traveler is approaching one that science calls a comet, yet one whose behavior reads like a verse taken directly from the ancient Hopi songs. In the last year, astronomers fixed their telescopes on a dim, unremarkable object drifting in from the outer reaches of the solar system. At first it was nothing special, a frozen wanderer of rock and ice. But as it drew closer to the sun, something began to change. Its tail, once colorless and faint, started to glow with a cobalt fire. Not white, not yellow, not green, blue. An electric blue that, when photographed through long exposure, seemed to paint the void with a thin luminous blade. Scientists were quick to explain ionization. They said, solar winds stripping electrons, charged gases reacting to ultraviolet radiation, a natural, predictable reaction. And yet, the timing, the convergence felt far from predictable, because the comet's transformation arrived at the exact moment our sun entered the peak of solar cycle 25, a period known for violent magnetic storms, heightened auroras, and chaotic bursts of solar energy. A cycle that, even before it peaked, began illuminating the earth in colors the modern world rarely sees. Deep violet veils trembling above cities, pale blue streaks sliding across the night sky like silent dancers, shimmering curtains of white rippling thousands of miles from their usual home near the poles. To the scientific community, these were fascinating but explainable anomalies. To the Hopi, they sounded like a chorus echoing from the ancient world, when the Purifier dances in blue. The sky itself will reveal all that has been hidden. And so, the question rises not whether the comet is the Blue Star Kachina, but why its appearance aligns so precisely with the language of a prophecy spoken centuries before telescopes existed. The Hopi described the blue star as the final sign, the revealer of truths. In their traditions, Kachinas are not mere spirits. They are embodiments of cosmic order, messengers bridging the seen and unseen. Among them, the blue star stands apart, not just a herald, but a mirror. It would, they said, show humanity not the future, but the truth of the present, stripping illusions the way fire strips bark from a fallen tree. To understand why this is so powerful, one must look at how ancient cultures across the world seemed to anticipate something similar, as if they too remembered a blue sign from an age long forgotten. The Dogon people of West Africa spoke of a companion star to Sirius, a blue star, invisible to the naked eye long before astronomy confirmed the existence of Sirius B. They described it with precision, dense, hot, shining with the color of deep water. How could they have known? In ancient Egypt, certain priesthoods taught that the rebirth of Osiris was marked by a sapphire-colored star rising in the east, a light that signaled transformation rather than destruction. Even the Navajo told stories of a blue flame spirit that appeared before great eras of renewal, its glow cleansing the land of what no longer served it. How could civilizations separated by oceans and millennia imagine the same symbol, a blue celestial messenger, marking a moment of planetary change? Perhaps coincidence? Perhaps something deeper. Perhaps not imagination, but memory. Yet even if one puts myth aside, the science around us is behaving with uncanny synchronization. Solar storms intensify, bending the magnetosphere like a harp string. Auroras spill across latitudes where they have no business appearing. Infrasound hums through the atmosphere. Instruments pick up strange electromagnetic pulses that flicker across continents without clear origin. And woven through it all, that cobalt-blue traveler continues its slow arc toward the sun. It glows brighter each month, its ion tail sharpening, lengthening, turning the same luminous shade described in the Hopi songs. The color of truth revealed, color ancient storytellers, compared to the breath of creation before dawn broke over the first world. Some astronomers dismiss the symbolism. Others privately admit the timing feels poetic. But for those who remember the Hopi words, those who understand prophecy not as prediction, but as pattern, the convergence feels like the sky clearing its throat, because the elders said this: when the blue star appears, it will not only light the heavens, it will light the human soul. A strange thing has been happening in recent months, unrelated, some say, but difficult to ignore. People report sudden moments of clarity, like waking up from a long, quiet sleep, old emotions rising without warning, dreams vivid enough to feel like messages, a sense of being on the edge of something unnamed. Psychologists call it collective anxiety. Mystics call it an awakening. The Hopi call it purification. Purification to them is not punishment. It is revelation, not destruction, but unveiling. This is what the blue star symbolizes: the collapse of illusion, internal and external, personal and planetary. For centuries, humans have looked at the night sky and seen stories, warnings, omens, but now, in the glow of the cobalt comet, something unusual is happening. People are not just seeing the sky, they are feeling it. The light touches something unspoken inside, as if stirring the dust of forgotten ages. And that is the most haunting alignment of all. The sky above and the psyche within, beginning to move in synchrony, like two mirrors finally turning toward one another. The Hopi always said the ninth sign would be undeniable. Not because it is dramatic, but because it resonates with a part of us that remembers the turning of worlds. And as the blue traveler drifts closer, painting the void with its electric breath, one cannot help but wonder, is this merely a comet? Or is the universe reminding us of a story older than science, older than prophecy, older than memory itself? Perhaps the answer lies not in the object, but in the recognition it awakens. Because sometimes, a sign is not powerful because of what it is, but because of what it awakens in the world that watches it. If the blue star is the final note of an ancient melody, then the 8 signs that precede it are the quiet chords that build the tension. The Hopi elders never intended these signs to be interpreted with fear. They intended them to be recognized with clarity. When the 8th appears, they said, the 9th will follow without hesitation. And now, when we turn back through the centuries, these signs read less like prophecies, and more like observations of a world slowly stepping toward imbalance. The first sign spoke of people with white skin, coming from the east, carrying thunder in their hands. Today it is interpreted with striking consistency: the arrival of Europeans and the thunder of muskets that reshaped entire continents. Not divine wrath, just a marker, an irreversible pivot in human history. The second sign describes spinning wheels of fire crossing the land, 2 ancient eyes, locomotives charging across the plains, iron tracks glowing at sunset. Must have looked exactly like that, fiery wheels rolling through sacred valleys, the steam engines hissing like metal serpents awakening from sleep. The third sign warned of a strange beast that speaks across the air. In the modern world, radios and broadcast towers fit that image with eerie precision, voices carried on invisible currents, words traveling across mountains, oceans, even deserts that had known only silence for thousands of years. Then came the fourth sign, a spider's web that stretches across the world. If the elders had intended metaphor, no image could be more fitting than the global internet, billions of people suspended in a shimmering digital lattice, strands of data connecting every border, every city, every voice. A web that binds, informs, and sometimes ensnares. The fifth sign foretold the land turning red and the people choking in their own creations. Industrial haze settling over continents, pollution drifting through megacities, dust storms rolling over farmland, stripped to sterility. These images echoed the prophecy with disturbing faithfulness. The sixth sign told of a great sea turning black, killing life within it. Oil spills from Alaska's frozen coastlines to the Gulf of Mexico left waters thick as ink, suffocating fish, birds, and entire ecosystems beneath blankets of petrochemical darkness. The seventh sign described youth with long hair rebelling against their elders. And indeed, if any period embodied revolt in spirit, rather than violence, it was the global countercultures of the 1960s and the waves of activism that followed. Movements driven not by conquest, but by the pursuit of freedom and identity. And then, the eighth sign. Dwelling places in the heavens falling to earth. Satellites burning up in the atmosphere. Space debris scattering across oceans and deserts. Fiery streaks carving the night sky like fallen embers. A sign unimaginable to ancient peoples and, yet unmistakable today. Individually, these signs may seem coincidental, but woven together, they form a narrative thread that pulls taut as the blue light brightens above. According to the Hopi, once the eighth sign appears and it has, the ninth follows with the inevitability of a tide. Yet the prophecy doesn't stop with signs written in the sky or in the works of humanity. It shifts downward, into the living world itself, into the ancient elements that, in Hopi thought, are conscious, breathing forces. And these forces, in recent years, have begun to stir in ways that feel less natural cycle, and more remembrance. Water, the elder among elements, has begun to rise not just in level but in temperature. Oceans warm and expand, currents shift, almost like a restless creature turning in its sleep. Coastal lines redraw themselves year by year. Storm surges slam into cities that once felt untouchable. and beneath the waves, coral fades like old photographs exposed to sunlight. To scientists, these are climatic irregularities. To the Hopi they are, the waters whispering. Balance has been broken. Fire, long a symbol of purification, behaves as though awakened with new ferocity. Wildfires leap across mountain ridges in ways even seasoned firefighters cannot predict. Flames climb through forests with unnatural speed, burning so hot they transform soil into glass. Entire valleys glow red like furnaces under an ancient sky. Fire does not only destroy, the elders said, it remembers, and in remembering, it clears the way for truth. Earth, the foundation beneath all life, has begun to mutter in low, rumbling tones. Regions once considered geologically silent now shiver with tremors. Volcanoes long thought, extinct exhale thin ribbons of smoke. In distant ocean trenches, methane bubbles rise in ghostly columns of blue-lit gas, flickering like underwater torches, strange silent warnings from the deep. Scientists call them geological events. The Hopi call them the earth clearing its throat. And then there is wind, the world's breath. It has become unpredictable, whispering through continents with new intent. Saharan dust travels across the Atlantic, painting sunsets in Texas and clouding skies in Brazil. Cyclonic patterns twist into unfamiliar shapes, carving paths across latitudes they once avoided. Jet streams wander like rivers escaping their banks. The winds will shift when the world prepares to turn, the elders said, and the winds are shifting. But it is not the raw force of the elements that unsettles people. It is the synchrony, the way water, fire, earth, and wind seem to be moving together, like four ancient siblings speaking in a language older than human memory. A language that echoes, again and again, the essence of the prophecy. The earth does not punish. It rebalances. And through this rebalancing, something even stranger begins to unfold. The sky transforming into a living canvas. Auroras bleed across unexpected regions, blue, violet, white, pulsing like spirits dancing above cities that have never known such light. Bands of purple, known to researchers as Steve, stretch across the heavens like cosmic rivers. Red sprites flicker above storms, forming tendrils that resemble wings or symbols lost to time. Pilots report glowing orbs drifting between cloud layers. Cameras record silent flashes with no thunder to follow. And in scattered corners of the world, people hear low, resonant hums of sky trumpets, tones that seem to vibrate in the soul more than in the ear. Science offers theories for each phenomenon, but not for their timing, not for their convergence, not for the feelings shared by millions that all these signs, all these awakenings, are part of a single breath the world is taking as it prepares for something long foretold. And as the elements stir and the sky remembers how to dance in colors older than history, humanity finds itself standing on the trembling edge between signs fulfilled and the mystery of what comes next. If the sky reveals what is happening above, and the elements reveal what is happening around us, then the final chapter of the Hopi prophecy reveals what is happening within. For the elders taught that the ninth sign, the blue star, does not ignite transformation in the heavens. It ignites it in the human heart. That is where the true purification begins. That is where worlds end and begin again. Across the planet, something subtle yet unmistakable has been stirring. People describe it in different ways. A restlessness, a sudden emotional pressure, an unexplainable heaviness, a feeling that something inside them is shifting even before they understand why. Sleepless nights, vivid dreams, memories rising from places they cannot identify, a sense of standing on the threshold of something enormous yet unseen. Psychologists call it collective tension. Sociologists call it cultural fatigue, but the Hopi call it the inner blue flame, the awakening that begins when humanity is finally ready to confront itself. This flame does not burn like fire. It burns like truth, quiet, relentless, illuminating. It rises in moments of clarity so sharp they feel painful, in sudden realizations that unravel years of denial, in the urge to seek meaning, purpose, connection. It is not destruction, it is revelation. And revelation, by its nature, is not always gentle. The elders taught that within each person lives a shadow, the accumulation of unspoken fears, suppressed emotions, forgotten wounds. Carl Jung called it the collective shadow, the hidden weight shared by entire societies. In Hopi tradition, when the ninth sign appears, this shadow trembles. It begins to surface, not to punish, but to be acknowledged. Because nothing hidden can pass into the fifth world. Everything unseen must be brought to light. This is why, during times of prophecy, the world often feels divided. Some collapse under the pressure, mistaking revelation for chaos. Others awaken, sensing not fear but clarity. The divide is not between nations or ideologies. It is between those who resist the inner flame, and those who allow it to guide them. And it is during this inner trembling that the Hopi spoke of a mysterious figure misunderstood, misnamed, often misrepresented by. To outsiders, Pahana has been twisted into the image of a savior, a returning wanderer, a lone prophetic figure who arrives at the end of the fourth world. But within the Hopi teachings, Pahana is something far deeper. Pahana is not a man. Pahana is a consciousness. It is the memory of unity, the understanding that all life is interwoven, a remembering of what humanity once knew before it fractured into the empire's conflicts, and illusions of separation that define the modern age. The elders warned that when division becomes too great, Pahana would return, not as a warrior, not as a ruler, but as a spark inside millions at once. That spark is already visible. People everywhere are returning to the land, growing food in abandoned lots, listening again to rivers and wind. Others are rediscovering ancestral knowledge, herbal medicine, holistic living, ancient stories that once kept communities in balance. Movements rooted in compassion, sustainability, and spiritual clarity rise quietly beneath the noise of a chaotic world. Even in cities made of steel, people feel the pull toward simplicity, toward meaning, toward authenticity. It is as if the essence of Pahana is whispering through humanity all at once. Not a person, but a shift. Not a return, but a remembering. And this remembering is what the Hopi called the Great Remembering, the final turning of the fourth world. They said that before the dawn of the fifth world, people would begin to recall truths they never learned in this lifetime. Deja vu would sharpen, dreams would become messages. Symbols from ancient cultures would resonate with people who have never studied them. The heart would begin to recognize what the mind cannot yet explain. Because the fifth world is not a physical place. It is a state of being. A world where children instinctively know the sacredness their ancestors whispered about. A world where the land is no longer seen as resource, but as relative. A world where truth walks openly again. But to reach it, the fourth world must complete its unraveling. Old systems built on fear and separation must fracture. Illusions must fall away. Those who cling to what is fading will see only chaos. Those who listen inward will sense only transformation. Both will witness the same events, one through fear, the other through memory. This is the true meaning of the Great Purification. Not catastrophe, but alignment. Not endings, but clarity. Not punishment, but the gentle removal of what no longer serves. And now, as signs unfold across the sky, across the elements, across the human spirit, the message grows unmistakable. We are living in the space between worlds. The blue star signals the turning. The elements answer its call. The human heart begins to open. And the memory of unity, of Pahana, awakens like a seed, long buried in the dark. What comes next is not guaranteed. Prophecy does not force a future, it reveals a path. The choice is ours, always has been, always will be. The Hopi understood this more clearly than anyone. They did not warn of apocalypse, they warned of opportunity. And now, as auroras ripple in impossible colors, as winds shift, as old emotions rise from their hiding places, the world seems to ask the same question the Hopi once asked beneath these same stars. Will we remember in time? And so the night quiets again. The blue light still hangs above the horizon, faint yet steady, as if refusing to be forgotten. It does not demand attention. It simply waits, glowing softly like a lantern left for a traveler who has wandered too long in the dark. Around it, the stars shimmer in their ancient patterns, unchanged and yet somehow different, as if one small shift in the heavens has taught the whole sky how to breathe again. Below, the world settles into a hush, a pause between heartbeats. The winds ease, the earth grows still, even the air feels tender, filled with the kind of silence that holds meaning rather than emptiness. It is the silence of invitation, of possibility, of a path not yet taken but finally visible. Perhaps the signs feel overwhelming. Perhaps they feel familiar. Perhaps they awaken fear, or memory. But whichever they stir, they echo the same truth the elders carried across generations. The doorway to the next world is not found in the sky, nor in the tremors of the earth. It is found in the heart. If the ninth sign is appearing, it is not to frighten us. It is to remind us, to draw us inward, toward the place where worlds begin and end, because every prophecy, no matter how vast, eventually narrows to a single point, a choice, to remember, or to forget. As the glow of the blue star ripples across the night, ask yourself gently, without fear, without urgency, simply ask, does this light awaken dread, or recognition? Does it signal an ending, or a beginning? What is it illuminating within you? For in the end, perhaps prophecy is not a warning at all. Perhaps it is a mere one that appears only when we are finally ready to see ourselves clearly. And tonight, beneath the trembling sky, that mirror quietly waits.